Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, the winner of last night's Westminster Dog Show, was a giant schnauzer named Monty.
With Tony Kornheiser, and if that event happened in a week, it would be our lead story. Because there's no hockey, there's no basketball, everybody's off, we got nothing.
We got college hoops, we got golf.
Yeah, we got little college hoops. Dogs would be great, let me tell you something. My dog Chessie was in that show, she'd have won. Or she'd have bitten one of the other dogs that did win. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Today's episode, college upsets, four nations face off, and Tim Legler joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with Dak Prescott. Not getting his money, but having this observation. Dak has complimented the Eagles on their Super Bowl victory, then took into account that the Eagles and Commanders are in the NFC East, and he concluded, quote, "We're very close, especially even watching the NFC Championship and those two teams that we battle against every year. It's our turn, and it's on us," unquote. Wilbon, how do you assess Dak's logic?
You know what, Tony, I know you really often zero in on what particularly prominent and worthy athletes say, and I don't. I just think we've reached the time where everybody, present company, half of it included, has a podcast, and everybody has to say something, and there's talk 24/7. And let me just point out, in Dak's case, he was speaking apparently at some sort of fundraiser to fight cancer. So I care much more where he was and the need to say something than I care about sort of what he said and parsing all the words and whether they're as good as the Eagles or the Commanders and what's going on in the NFC East. It doesn't sway me. It doesn't really move me. I don't care what Dak says. I want to see him on the field next season. I hope he's healthy enough following this latest ailment and surgery to be I want to see him play. I don't really care what he says. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a stump speech. It's something you say to make the fans happy and give them hope. Yeah. I have no problem with it. The logic is flawed, though, because if it was as simple as playing a team twice every year, then your Chicago Bears would be in the playoffs because they play Detroit twice every year, and they play Green Bay twice every year, or the Raiders would be in the playoffs because they play Kansas City twice every year. The fact of the matter is that last year, the Cowboys lost to the Eagles twice by a margin of 73-14. It's an unbelievable margin, and they are, in the last 3 years, the Eagles have gone to the Super Bowl twice, and the Cowboys have been 1-2 in the playoffs and have watched the Super Bowl at home, on TV. I mean, they're in a situation, and Dak's going to make them better, Mike. If he plays the whole season, going to make them better. They're in a situation where Philadelphia is discernibly better than they are, and Washington is probably better than they are also. And to be fair, they haven't been to the Super Bowl in 29 years. So,
Tony,
I wouldn't bet on it.
But the other thing is, there's nothing Dak can say that's going to reverse what you just said about what happened with the Eagles last season, or the fact that he's got 2 division teams ahead of him, apparently. Nothing he says is going to change it. In the meantime, we had a spate of top 25 upsets in men's college hoops last night.
Yeah, so my initial reaction is to say it's Kentucky winning, because we'd seen Kentucky lose at home, right, about a week ago to Arkansas, and things weren't going well. And then I would convince myself to say this because it's an SEC game. And we're told every day that the SEC is the best basketball conference in the country. And a lot of people stand up and say it could be an all-SEC Final Four. And Tennessee was number 5. And Kentucky now, Mike, is 7-1 against teams in the top 15, which is fabulous. But if I pick that game, I'm just going along with the crowd, and I don't know. I have to admit, I haven't kept up with college basketball that much this year because I was one of 127 million people that watched the Super Bowl instead. So I'll give you 2 quick ones. Indiana, because Mike Woodson said he's stepping down at the end of the season before they fire him. And UConn. And here's why. And UConn beats a good team. They beat Creighton at Creighton. That's a good win. They're a ranked team. But here's what I do know about college basketball. The last 2 years, UConn won the national title. No SEC team won the national title.
Indiana at Michigan State. That's the answer to the question. I mean, my man Mike Woodson, who, got that school, that team, to the NCAA tournament, and then, okay, it's not a good year, but the avalanche that's fallen on him is completely, exaggerated and out of proportion as far as I'm concerned. And he stopped Izzo from breaking his record, his tie with Bob Knight. That's a big deal. But let me say quickly, Tony, there's no great team in college basketball. Teams won at home last night where they ought to win at home. And that would include Kentucky, where they ought to win that game. Michigan beat Purdue.
Right.
Michigan playing in Ann Arbor ought to win that game. And Kansas State playing against Arizona, where people are stopping and starting 6-game streaks. They ought to win that game at home, and they did. So we haven't had any giant upsets, not from last night, not in my opinion.
Luka, LeBron, and the Lakers are at the Utah Jazz tonight. You saw the Lakers the other night in Luka's debut. Well, you're lucky to have done that, it seems to me. What stood out to you?
Well, first, just the buzz in the arena walking in 2 hours before the game. It felt like a major playoff game or maybe even a finals type environment walking in. And you're talking about, you know, a game against the Utah Jazz who aren't playing really for anything, a 12-win team. So that was the first thing, just the electricity that was created. But then once I saw them play, really what I saw was limitless possibilities offensively for J.J. Redick and what these two guys represent playing together. You're talking about, along with Nikola Jokic, I think there are 3 guys in this league that can beat you in every conceivable way as a scorer or a passer. And that means making any play that needs to be made with your passing vision anticipation because of their size and their strength and their ability to get the ball from one side of the floor to the other. They're making the right reads combined with their threat as a scorer. Those 3 guys are in a special class. And now the Lakers have 2 of them. And they have them potentially on opposite sides of the floor. They can involve them in similar action to try to get the switch of the mismatch that they want. That, to me, is what stood out. Just what they can eventually become the more time they have together.
Well, that's one side of the seesaw, Tim. You're at the other one tonight in Dallas, where the Mavericks are back on the floor. When you look at what's going on with that team, all the injuries to the bigs, I mean, my goodness, it's like half a roster of bigs being down, the fan base being unhappy. Tim, is there a silver lining you see at all for the Mavericks franchise right now?
I'm going to be honest, I really don't. And I know people might think, hey, you got AD back, you've got a good team still, and all those things are true. And heck, you know, this year might be tough with these injuries. I don't know how long it's going to take to get fully healthy. You're going to be coming from a really difficult spot in the West, maybe a play-in team, and then trying to roll through 3 series on the road in the West. I don't know that they do a lot of damage this year, but even if you're able to do something like that, make a run this year, make a run next year, hey, maybe win a title in the next 3 years, I don't know that that would salve the wounds of the people in Dallas because number one, they're thinking, hey, we might have done that with Luka too. We'll never know that. They went to the finals a year ago, so who knows ultimately what their upside would have been. But more importantly, you took away a guy that represented what will be the favorite player for many, many, many people in Dallas. And that will be forever. No matter who comes in after him, no matter how short his time was here, what he does in LA or beyond, it represented a gut punch to the fan base and to the community. So I don't even think short-term winning is going to be enough when you look at what Luka Doncic potentially represented over the next 10, 12, 15 years if he stayed in a Mavericks uniform.
Let me go to the Warriors at this point. Steph Curry has been very praising of Jimmy Butler. He's basically said, Jimmy Butler getting here has made me a better player, made me more comfortable on the court. Is this fit strong enough to overcome the fact that the Warriors have no size at all?
To ultimately overcome it, Tony, probably not, because number one, Oklahoma City is the barometer now. That's the measuring stick in the West. And they can play big, they can play small, they can play fast. They're the best defensive team in the NBA. So I don't know that anybody's overcoming that this year in the West. But what it does do is make the Golden State Warriors have a little juice here down the stretch. And there's a little extra. And I've seen extra, even in Steph Curry's bounce and rhythm and the way he's moving. He looks quicker. He looks more into it, I think, because he has hope. And what Jimmy Butler addresses are a few things. One, he's a very underrated passer. So he has already made reads in a couple of games that the guys that they had occupying those minutes before couldn't make. He knows how to play. He has a very high IQ. And when he's motivated, he really impacts the game on both ends. And I think he is highly motivated. I think he's got a lot to prove after what went down in Miami and just some of the hits he took. He is ready to come in and contribute, play in a system that's fun. And he has already had a direct contribution on what Steph Curry's been able to do offensively and freeing up some space for him and then doing things defensively to help this team. Their size is a factor, though, Tony, or lack thereof, I should say. No doubt about it.
Tim, we'll let you wrap up with this. I'm in Arizona right now, as you can probably see. I was in the building last night for Kevin Durant surpassing 30,000 points in his career, a point that only Wilt and Michael Jordan got to faster than KD. But I want to ask you about a very complex thing with Kevin Durant right now. He's on a team, as great as he's playing, he's on a team which is like 12th, I think, in the standings right now, nowhere near a real playoff spot. What do you make of KD at this point in his career? The talent, but the fit with the Suns, where he may wind up. What do you make of all of it?
Well, first, I want to just acknowledge the accomplishment, because sometimes you hear a guy, reaches a milestone and you show the highlight and everybody kind of goes, oh, that's great, he got a milestone. And then you actually see the list of players that they put up on the screen on SportsCenter last night. And you look at that and take that in for a second, and there's 8 guys in the history of this league have done that. And you look at the names: LeBron, Kareem, Karl Malone, Kobe, Michael Jordan, Dirk, Wilt, Kevin Durant. Let me look at that list. I just first want to pat him on the back. He's one of the greatest players this league has ever seen. He's certainly one of the most entertaining. Unfortunately for Kevin Durant, he's in a situation right now with a team that just doesn't have enough fight. And that's what I see most nights when I watch Phoenix. I don't think they handle adversity great. I don't think they're necessarily a particularly tough team. They can be very good offensively on given nights. The consistency isn't there. They just haven't been able to gel and figure it out since they brought these 3 scorers together. They even made a coaching change. They've surrounded them with different role players. None of it has really translated to winning at a high level. So unfortunately for Kevin Durant, he did something incredible, and it's a little bit obscured by the fact that Phoenix right now is not looking like a legitimate threat in the Western Conference.
Tim, so good to have you on. So good. Thank you so
Tim.
much.
Really appreciate it, man.
Always enjoy it, guys. Anytime for you.